INCOIS carries out coastal vulnerability assessment. So basically is the term it has been used here. The term it has been used is here. Here is coastal vulnerability index. So what exactly is coastal vulnerability index it is? So syllabus is basically environment and ecology with natural disaster topics, because it has been asked. So you have to make first that what is the syllabus we are going to cover it. So syllabus is here environment, ecology and natural disaster, we are going to cover it. Okay. So now we can say India National Center for Ocean Transform Information Service, INCOIS. So INCOIS basically India National Center for Ocean Transform Information Services, INCOIS has carried out coastal vulnerability assessment for entire Indian coast as a state level to bring out an atlas comprising 156 maps on this one. This is not important, but coastal vulnerability index. From this CVI, coastal vulnerability index CVI, it can be delineated that Gujarat 124 coastal kilometers is going to get affected, or 5.36%. This is data is not more important, but we have to think about why it is important. So maximum coastal area in India, we can say Gujarat is the longest coastline in India, right? It's 1600 kilometers surrounded by the Arabian Sea. So Gujarat is very easily affected because maximum coastal area is surrounded by the Gujarat, and second one is the Andhra Pradesh. So from the CVI, that is coastal vulnerability index, it can be delineated that Gujarat 124 coastal kilometer that is surrounded by the Arabian Sea is going to be get affected by 5.36%. Maharashtra 11 kilometers or 1.22, and the Karnataka and Goa is 48 kilometers or 9.54%. Okay, so while the maps determine the coastal risk due to the future sea levels rise based on the physical and geological parameters for the Indian coast. So the CVI uses the relative risk that physical changes will occur as the sea level rises. So we can see if the sea level rises, then flood can be easily occur. So the CVI uses that relative risk that physical changes will occur as sea level rises are quantified based on parameters like tidal range, wave height, coastal slopes. Coastal vulnerability assessment can be useful information. This can be CVI is coastal vulnerability assessments can be useful information for coastal disasters management and building resilient coastal communities. So a coastal multi-hazard vulnerability mapping MHVM was also carried out using parameters like sea level change rate, shoreline change rate, high resolution coastal elevation, extreme water level from tide gauge and their return periods. So because this one, why it is important, MHVM, because if in a coastal area, if the flood has been affected, so many livelihood has been affected in that portion. So that's why what the government wants, that this can be easily protected by the CVI as well as MHVM, so that we can save the livelihood or many lives of the peoples and as well as animals, and most of the resources are affected. Okay, here is a article that is based on privatization. So here is data is not more important. Privatization is UPSC syllabus, economy syllabus. It means the time of LPG reforms. So we need to keep in mind. So what exactly it is? So basically we can say privatization, which means that we can say so in this article we not need to keep in such kind of data, but this one is important to understand, because simply pursuing that path will utilizing such proceeds for loan write-offs. So this data is not important, but yes, the other one is important. Okay. India's fiscal deficit for the center of financial year 2022 is expected to be 6.8%. Fiscal deficit, we can say this is a kind of loss, right? So expected to be 6.8% of the GDP, or about 15.6 lakh crore. The Disinvestment Commission under the Ministry of Industries was set up 1996 to provide inputs on which firms to privatize in over a 5-10 year period. So you have to understand what exactly the term disinvestment, how it is related to the economy, how can we define disinvestment. So because the definition must need to important in the terms of economy. So what is that? Disinvestment is the action of an organization of government selling or liquidating an assets or subsidiaries. So that is known to be a disinvestment. जब government किसी चीज को बेचती है या उसकी subsidiaries को बेचती है, that is known to be a disinvestment term. Because privatization, if you take it's directly privatization, then people will number of people will aware having some kind of discontent that government is selling the properties. Not, that's why the term it has been used, disinvestment. So disinvestment commissions under the Ministry of Industry. So sometimes in your prelims exam they will ask it to you. So because the recent news, most of the disinvestment, or we can say privatization, has been occurred. So as you can see, so they will ask you, the disinvestment commission under which ministry. So they will give you the 4 options. Make sure this will Ministry of Industries to provide inputs of which firms to privatize in a 5 to 10 year period. So who will be responsible for disinvestment? Ministry of Industries. Ministry of Industries. This commission was dissolved in 1999. It was established in 1996, but dissolved in 1999. A separate department of disinvestment was set up under the Ministry of Finance. So make sure, it's very confusing in terms of your prelims exam, right? Because ministry-based question, lots of questions of ministry-based question has been asked earlier. So make sure that here now, if you look it very carefully, this commission was dissolved in 1999. A separate department of disinvestment was set up under which ministry? Now Ministry of Finance. So earlier that was Ministry of Industries, now the Ministry of Finance, and later upgraded to a full-fledged ministry in 2001. It was downgraded back to a department in 2004. Beyond the institutional setup, privatization as a policy has also singularly failed to raise significant funds. Actual recipients from disinvestment have always fallen significantly short of targets. So, okay. So there is also a challenge of valuation example. About 65% of about 300 national highways projects have been recording significant collection of growth. Any valuation of such assets will need to ensure they capture potential growth in toll revenue also, which is NHAI, National Highway Authorities of India. Highway expansion bears fruit and the economy recovers. Beyond revenue, there are serious social consequences with privatization. PSU have been significant generation employment in the past. Public sector undertakings have been significant generations of employment in the past. Greater concentration of public assets in select private hands is also a medium-term concern, because at the time of LPG reforms, we were agreed for this one until unless the other country will not going to be help you out. So LPG, basically liberalization, privatization, globalization, it was occurred in 1991. So India, about 70% of all profits generated in the corporate sector. So we can see the financial year 2020 with just 20 firms. So 70% of all profits generated in the, because in the recent article we have seen the only few millionaire or billionaire are we can say the controlling the entire India. So that article was too hit in the Hindu also. So India about 70% of all profit generation generated in the corporate sector in just in 20 firms we can see. Only 20 firms is generating 70%. Like in Tata, like we can say HCL, lots of companies there, then the data not need to be needed and they will not ask you in your exam as well. But you must aware about the only 20 firms will generating 75% of all profits. Here is mRNA vaccine. So why it is important? How the mRNA vaccine is work? Okay. So this one is not more important, but we have to focus on how the India's mRNA vaccine likely to be appealed. This exam, this is what we need to understand, what is mRNA vaccine and how it works. This is not more important. So do not, what I said, do not try to follow like in the race, like we are following the same kind of things, because that's why everyone is following. So make sure that how the mRNA vaccine is working about. So if we think like, okay. So the mRNA vaccine centrally being developed by Pune-based Genova Biopharmaceutical is currently in phase 2 by third trials. So this is not more important, but yes, this is important. What is mRNA vaccine? mRNA vaccine is a type of vaccine that uses a copy of a molecule called messenger RNA to produce an immune response. Messenger RNA vaccine teaches our cells how to make a protein that will trigger an immune response inside our bodies. So basically, messenger RNA is a type of RNA that will help you out in the to boost up your immune system as well, and transferring the genes from one to another molecules. So like all vaccine, mRNA vaccine are benefited people who get vaccinated by giving them protection against diseases like COVID-19 without risking the potentially serious consequences of getting sick. So messenger RNA basically vaccine that teach our cells how to make a protein that will trigger an immune response inside our bodies. So mRNA vaccine is very, very important. The benefit people who get vaccinated by giving them protection against diseases like COVID-19. So messenger RNA vaccine is very, very important. So we have to understand what mRNA vaccine is. Copy of molecules called messenger RNA. So messenger RNA is a vaccine is a copy of mRNA vaccine. So here it is, we can say, here it is. How mRNA vaccine work? The vaccine spurs healthy cells to produce viral proteins that stimulate protein immune response. Here is, we can say, here is a spike protein. As we can see in the COVID-19, here is a spike protein. Just a second. Here it is a spike protein, and here we can say mRNA sequence. Scientists generated mRNA sequence that codes for the virus spike protein. So mRNA vaccine, they will just reducing this one spike protein, that will work to reducing the spike protein. And second step is that the RNA sequence is blueprint for the making the spike is swathe a lipid coating for delivery. That means they will just copy such kind of lipid vaccine, and then mRNA vaccine is boosted. Now here it is, spike protein is there, lesser in amount we can say. So once it arrives, cells read the information in the mRNA sequence to produce millions of copies of the spike protein. As we can see, first that mRNA sequence will work on virus spike protein. Second will coating the delivery of lipid coating, and then once it arrives, cells read the information in the mRNA sequence to produce the millions of copies the spike protein, and the last stage of that, the protein fragments spread in the immune system to produce antibodies that can protect when a real virus enters the body. So you now understand how mRNA vaccine work, because in vaccination I have shared in the initial class that lots of a question has been asked in the prelims section. So here is antibodies that can fight in the virus. So we can say mRNA vaccine first is coated the virus spike protein, and then lipid coating, and then how mRNA vaccine work, here is spike protein, and that can spur the immune system to produce antibodies that can protect them a real virus. That antibodies protect them the real virus enters the body. So how we can see how mRNA vaccine is working to us, because why this is important, because the reason behind, we must need to understand how mRNA vaccine is work. Until unless we will, if you will not understand what exactly how it works, then we will not solve the questions asked in the prelims and as well as mains exam. So guys, thank you so much for joining us. So in this class that we have learned lots of things, that probably if you have any doubts, then please ask in the comment section, and if you are new in this channel, so like, comment and subscribe as well. So because so guys, we'll move to the next class, and if you have any doubts and query, so you can ask it to me. So thank you so much for joining us. Bye bye, and take care of yourself. Thank you.